Our co-host is Mr. Gary Stein. Gary, how are you this evening?
Good, my man. How are you, Stanley?
I'm very well. And Gary, we started this thing about 3.5 months ago, I guess, and we started out doing some sports business stuff. We had in quick order Andy Dolich, Marty Conway, and Blue from Aquarius Sports Marketing. And tonight we've got somebody to get us back and tell us a little bit about how sports is welcoming clients back in with sports marketing. And our guest is Mike Berger from Berger Sports Marketing. Mike, how are you? Long time no see, but it's good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's good to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
And you know Gary as well. You've known him a long time.
Yeah.
You guys rubbed elbows together in the sports marketing world.
Absolutely.
We definitely want to get in. The main reason we had you on was to talk about your assessment of how sports is getting back into being live action. We've got basketball, hockey playing in a bubble. We got baseball, not in a bubble, but baseball. Football is next on the burner. College football, a lot of different things going on there. But I did want to introduce you to our audience that we're developing here on Facebook Live. So how long have you been? I know Berger Sports Marketing's been around 10 years, but how'd you get your start in sports marketing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was first trying to do what you're doing, Stan. I was hell bent on becoming a sportscaster when I was a kid and when I went to college, and that was the dream at that time. And I was chasing it. I did some play-by-play for the student radio station at my University of Rhode Island, and got out of school and got a job doing an overnight shift at a radio station in Orlando. Very quickly sort of realized that was not going to be something I could do for a living.
Yeah, you've made a living out of this. Me, I've been an abject failure for 35 years.
Not what I would call you for sure, Stan. But yeah, I was fortunate enough that I think I lost you guys.
No, keep going.
Okay. It's fortunate enough that the radio station that I was doing some on-air work for was also looking for salespeople. I started to sell some advertising on the station and generate some revenue, and I've really made a career of it from there. And that was about 25 years ago.
And when you started Berger Sports Marketing, was the idea that you would obtain some clients, or did you walk in with a couple existing clients that you had been doing business with?
Yeah, I knew I had two. I was working at University of Maryland. I had been there for 3 years. I had been around at working for a couple of the local sports teams, and I wanted to start the business. I had an idea about how I could do it, and I approached one client, and he got me connected with a second client. And so through one person, I was able to start the company with two pretty good clients off the bat, which limited the risk and allowed me to go forward and try to build from there.
All right. Well, we welcome you in tonight, and Gary's going to start off the questioning, dig into this pandemic and how it's affected sports and the business of sports. Gary?
Right. Well, actually, and yeah, we definitely want to cover that. But I actually have one more question just to follow up with Stan. Mike, and we've talked about this before, just as full disclosure for everybody, but you have a unique selling proposition as far as Berger Sports Marketing is concerned. You just alluded to the fact that you had an idea. Well, I know what your idea is, and I think your idea was a really interesting one for sports marketers, such as your clients and other sports marketers. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your idea was? Because I think when you did it in 2010, it was high time that somebody did it.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, part of the concept was I thought that, having sold sponsorships for many years at that point, I had seen where some sponsorships that were sold by the team to the sponsor were overpriced and underperforming.
Right.
And there was a lot of turnover in those sponsorships. As you know, there was this idea, well, let's sell somebody in. If you're working for a team, let's get a sponsor in, let's sell them a sign, let's sell them whatever we have to sell. And then there would be this attrition because the client would be dissatisfied. What were the results? I can't trace the results. I think I paid a lot of money for this thing. Yeah, I had a sign in the building or I had some radio spots running, but how do I know that that really worked? And I guess, I hope this is what you mean. I know this is the way I looked at the business, was that I felt like I could step into the middle of that process, given my experience on the team side, and represent the sponsor and say to them, look, I've worked for these teams. I know how they operate. I can help you develop sponsorships that will perform better, that in many cases will cost less, that will include more. And at the end of the year, we're going to be able to track results from it, because we're going to hold the team accountable together to deliver those results.
That's
so
a
I kind
great-
of switched teams.
That's a great question by Gary and a great answer, Mike.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and
I'm sorry. Let me let you finish it. I'm sorry.
Well, and that is what I was alluding to.
Yeah.
And obviously it's worked over 10 years. About the challenges, we all face challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic, challenges with sending our kids to school, challenges with working from home. What are some of the challenges that sports marketers are facing in this weird environment for sports, and your way to help address that?
Yeah, well, different challenges now, certainly, than what we were facing in March, April, even May, and most of June, where sports were shut down. That was the toughest time, certainly for sports marketing, for my business, for clients that I work with who had decided to invest in a sports marketing strategy. We had all these plans for what we were going to do, and suddenly all the games got wiped off the planet, and there were no sports to attend. There were no sports to go to and entertain clients. There was nothing to watch, and you know the story. They were really shut down and put on hold, and that was a very challenging time to try to first deal with the health issues of your family, of your clients, of your loved one, make sure everybody's okay before you even got into the idea of talking about business with your clients. That was a delicate sort of balance. And, after a few weeks went by, obviously I'm touching base with my clients to figure out, okay, when and if the sports resume, we're going to have to go about it differently. And first asking those clients, are you still on board with hanging in there and trying to stay on track from a budget standpoint? The money that you allocated towards these strategies, can it stay there and wait for sports unknown resumption at that point, that maybe they'll come back? And if they do you still want to spend the money there on what it will be, if it will be anything? So a lot of those very challenging, hypothetical, what if maybe sort of conversations, but asking the client to hang in there if they could, to continue to walk down the road and see where it led, and then trust that I would work with our team partners and our media partners to figure out how to pull value out of the packages and out of the sponsorships when and if the sports came back. And now that they're back, we've had to change a lot of what we do.
So let me follow up from Gary's point. How did you, and you don't have 30 clients, you have 4 or 5 really nice sized clients, and we'll mention them as we go along. Did any of them, and I'm not asking you necessarily to say, well, Joe's Plumbing said that I'm going to back out, but did any of them say, hey, this is too shaky for me, I'm going to go market some other way? You can still do it maybe, but, or did all of them say, let's hang in and play the long game with sports?
Yeah, most of my clients were able to hang in there because sports has become, for many of my clients, a big part of how they market their product and how they entertain and reward their clients and their employees. So there wasn't a natural shift into, well, let's do this instead of sports. Most of my clients are really invested in this strategy and were willing and able to hang in. I do work with the Green Turtle, and when you're a sports bar and sports get shut off and bars get closed, you got a challenge on your hands. And so I'm still working with them. We still are developing a strategy for the time when we're ready to resume. So they're hanging with me, but there's not much for them to say at the moment. They are reopened now, but they've had to go a little bit quieter. They really were impacted by this pandemic as much as any business that I'm aware of. The sports bar industry has really taken a major hit, bars in general, but particularly sports bars that count so much on the sports being on TV and people coming for that reason. So they've really been damaged by it. We think they'll come out of it strong, and they have a plan, but they've had to kind of put things on hold. Everybody else, thankfully, has gone forward and pushed through, and we've adapted to kind of what's left for us to participate in and trying to make the best of it.
And can you give us any insights, and the people that are viewing us on Facebook Live or on PressBoxOnline.com? Because you liaison between the client and the club, what have you found the clubs? Did they go through a time period when this first all closed down where you didn't hear from them, or what? But how have they responded? Because I'm guessing they're in this for the long haul, that they have probably not kissed your butt, but they're really in touch with the clients, trying to keep them on the reel, so to speak, the fishing reel,
Yeah, it's a great question. And I've been, for the most part, really impressed and happy with how the teams have behaved and how they've operated in this situation. In the beginning, I felt there was a little bit of denial, because in early March and February, that's a key time for renewing deals that expired. You're just about to do a baseball deal.
Yep.
Spring training is coming to an end. I'm just about to do my deal with the Nats or the Orioles or with Masson. We're talking about renewing our Ravens deal that just ended after the season ends. You're talking about activating your college basketball March Madness promotions, and then all of it just stops. And you have a few of the teams and a few of the reps that I work with still following up with me in the middle or end of March, talking about, hey, we got to get these deadlines met. We got to get this wrapped up. And you just sort of politely say, I think we're going to have to put that on hold for a little bit while we deal with bigger issues here. But once you get through that period, for the most part, with only a couple of exceptions, the teams have been so fair and have done the right thing, which is to take the long view. We want Berger Sports and your clients and all of our clients to think well of us and to be with us and to be loyal to us and to maintain a long-term view of the relationship. So we're not going to try to interpret the contract in a certain way that says you still owe us this money, even though there's a pandemic that caused games to be canceled. Everybody was really fair and creative. The challenge has really been that the inventory has just changed. Some of the inventory just isn't available. And so there's only so much you can do to stay on track with a particular team before you have to inevitably maybe switch gears into a media partner that they work with that is delivering the product in a different way now. But for the most part, they've all been really good to work with.
Yeah. So, Mike, let's actually talk about that a little bit. Now that sports are back and we can watch them on TV, we see a vastly different game. Depending on what network or what local, or what regional sports network, you could see cardboard cutouts in the stands, you see empty stands, you see digital fans in there, and you've lost a lot of your in-stadium visibility to fans because fans aren't there. So you've had to pivot. And if you could just give us a couple of examples of the types of inventory that are available now for you that maybe your clients or that you've recommended your clients to pivot to so that they could get the visibility that they're looking for.
Sure. Thankfully for my clients, we had already over the last few years started to make a shift away from in-stadium messaging into media. We really felt like that's where the eyeballs were. Television and radio, it allows us to tell a story versus a sign on a wall, really just promoting a logo or a brand or a very, very quick message. So in a lot of ways, we had made the move in advance of this that allowed us to be in the space we needed to be in for this situation. But we certainly had a couple where we were still in the stadium. And I'll give you an example. I work with Delta Dental in Massachusetts, and we have a pretty big deal with the Bruins. One of the pieces of our deal is the Smile Cam. It's a dental insurance company. They want to promote oral health and happy smiles and healthy smiles. So you've all been in a game where you see the Smile Cam. They go around and you show these happy fans smiling and waving to the camera, and you see it on the Jumbotron. Well, suddenly there's no games, and so there's no Smile Cam in the building. And so the Bruins still want to collect the rest of their money for the sponsorship and figure out a way to deliver for Delta Dental. So we had to get very creative and have the Bruins work together with the New England Sports Network, Nesson, who carries the Bruins games. And when the games resumed on television, we're doing the Smile Cam on television. So when you watch the games on Nesson, you're seeing a Smile Cam. And on top of that, there's no fans there either. So who's smiling? So we had to get creative, and they shoot, happy Bruins players and arena workers, whoever they can find that's having, has a bright, happy smile on their face. And then we're delivering that element of SmileCam through the TV broadcast. So that's been one example where we had to kind of move out of an arena into media. But thankfully, for the most part, we were already in that space. So it really then became managing, well, we were going to have 162 Orioles and Nats games to participate in. Now we have 60. So how do we deliver the same value with fewer games? And in a lot of ways, I've been really happy with the new inventory that's sort of been born out of this. I'm sure you've noticed a lot of the virtual signage when you watch the games on Masson. Yep. There's a lot of new opportunities that make up for there not being any fans there. They're covering some of the view of those empty seats with tarps with logos on them. And some of that is virtual being superimposed by the TV broadcast. And my clients are definitely taking part in that and feeling like it's giving them even a larger presence through the TV broadcast than we had before by mostly operating through commercials during breaks, that now we're sort of more embedded in the action. And in a lot of ways, it's been an upgrade.
So yeah, just to be clear, and I don't want anybody to give away professional secrets or whatever, but to the regular fan who may be watching a game and they see that big sign out there that's kind of covering the center field bleachers, yeah, or the sign that's like in the first couple of rows of seats behind home plate, yeah, they may wonder, is that the stadium putting that up or is that the TV putting that up? But you're saying mostly it's virtually put in there. The teams don't really do that.
Yeah, so the Orioles are doing some, real signage, some. There are a few tarps that they actually put in for their partners, but much of it is virtual. So the ones that you see that are the new ones sort of behind home plate that's brand new this year, it's sort of above where you can see the sign box that actually holds the physical vinyl sign. Above that, there's another one now that's virtual. And when the ball is hit to right center field, they've got a logo superimposed on the batter's eye. That's virtual. And then in the right center field bleachers that you mentioned, that's also virtual. So
they've also added, yeah, Mike, haven't they? They've added something on the pitcher's mount.
And the
very small logo, yeah, on the pitcher's mount.
That's right. That's exactly right. So that's allowed the networks and the teams to protect some revenue. It's allowed my clients to continue to participate in a new and somewhat better way. And so it's been a big relief for that baseball has come back, hockey's come back, because even just as a television product, there's a lot for a sports marketer to do just using that broadcast and social media as well.
The Orioles are playing the Philadelphia Phillies as we're speaking. And last night I was watching the game, and did you see who's one of the cutouts is on the first base side, like right behind the dugout? Benjamin Franklin.
I did see that. Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah,
was great.
Yeah,
Mike, I wanted to ask you a little bit about one of the two sports now that are sort of now that hockey, basketball, and baseball are back being played. The focus is spun over to football, and several big time conferences in college football have announced that they're not going to play this fall. Yeah. That they may try and attempt to play sometime in the second semester, springtime. And the NFL is moving forward with the idea that they're going to play, yet they canceled all the exhibition games. I just wanted your take on college football and the NFL, because those sports had been out of the picture for a long time. And you felt like, well, those were the lucky sports. They didn't have to deal with this pandemic, but our response has been so crazy here in this country that they're very much still, we're in the midst of the first, run of this virus.
No question. Yeah. And, it's hard for me to imagine how major college football is going to play this fall, given that the Big Ten and a couple of other conferences have already said they will not participate. I think it makes it very difficult for any of the power conferences or any of the conferences for that matter to put their teams on the field. So my best guess at this point would be that they're all going to intend to push to spring and see if they can make a go of it in spring. The NFL, I've been trying to figure out for a couple of months now to make it, to advise my clients what is going to happen, because the NFL is still the big giant in the room, right? You can't have a sports marketing company that's based in Baltimore and not be engaged with the Baltimore Ravens. They take up a lot of space in this realm. And so my clients have been asking for a while and continue to ask, what are we going to do? What can we do with the Ravens? And it's tough. I have taken a cautious approach and try to manage my clients' expectations as it relates to the NFL. And I've been sort of consistent in saying my best guess is there will not be a football season. Now, part of that is that I really believe that's what's going to happen. But I also am trying to manage expectations and make sure that we're at least building a plan that deals with the idea that what if there is no season? Yeah. Now, at the same time, concurrently, building hypothetical plans for what we'll do if there is a season. But I have a hard time understanding how they get to go forward, how they prevent spread playing a sport like football, how you're going to make it any of these sports work really over the long term without a bubble format, which apparently they're not going to do.
Yeah.
And so I think they've got a major challenge ahead. Obviously they do. And I hope they're able to figure it out. At this point, I'm not seeing how they do. And we can talk more about how we're dealing with it from a sponsorship standpoint. But my best guess at this time, I'd be curious how you guys feel, is that they may try, but I'm not sure they can make it work.
Well, it's interesting. I've talked to a couple of people, they came out about 3 weeks ago. You saw that face mask that's going to go in the helmet. It's got some breathing spots.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that that thing's not going to fog up a lot and cause some claustrophobia among the players.
Yeah.
And also, let's not kid ourselves. The linemen that play professional football are all diabetic. Their mass is so huge.
Yeah.
I can't believe that the virus couldn't be potentially really dangerous to them.
No question.
So that's my take, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, but the linemen, both offensive and defensive linemen, they obviously face off against each other every play. I mean, I just don't see how that's going to work.
Wait a minute, I excuse me for interrupting, Gary, but somebody was telling me that aside from the face mask, somebody has invented a mouth guard that I don't know if it'll be mandated that you have to wear it or they're going to suggest you wear it, but it probably will lessen the spit, somehow will catch it or something like that. But that adds another level of uncertainty. So go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you're a receiver or a quarterback, even a running back for the most part, I mean, you'll get hit, you'll get tackled, you get up, you walk away. But these offensive and defensive linemen, they're engaging with one another for 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds every single play. It's nonstop. It never stops. So I don't know how football is going to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if, as we see more and more players opt out for the 2020 season, it's not surprising that most of them are offensive and defensive linemen because of that. So yeah, Mike, I totally agree. I know they want to. They are the big elephant in the room or whatever. They do get $19 billion worth of revenue every year. But it's, I mean, we'll just see what happens. But Mike, I wanted to kind of pivot a little bit here because I know we don't have that much time left. But at the end of the day, Mike, you are for your clients and you've done well for them for 10 years. But you're a business owner as well. That's your day-to-day, thing that you do. And I'm just wondering, from a business owner's perspective, as you try to maintain your agency, perhaps grow your agency, what have you personally learned from this pandemic on how to deal with business and your clients at the same time?
Yeah. I, as you know, Gary, because you and I have known each other, and you have an understanding of how I operate. My business is just me. I don't have a staff. I do this out of the house. It's been this way for 10 years. It's a really boutique agency with big clients that
you foresaw the pandemic 10 years ago. You were just ahead of the curve working at home.
Yeah, I certainly never saw a pandemic, but I have definitely lived my business life in a rainy day mindset. Yeah. I have. Now this is real. This is some real rain that I never could have anticipated. But I what I've learned is that maybe operating lean keeping expenses low, not trying to grow too fast or beyond capability, and trying to maintain a work-life balance where there's enough money coming in and that I can do the things I want to do and take care of my family, that there's not too much work where I can't take care of each client in exactly the way that I want to take care of them, to not sell all your bandwidth, and also not to bring in people to hand the work off to. Those are all choices that I made over the years, despite some good advice from some very smart people who've been pushing me for years. You got to grow, you got to expand. When's Berger Sports going to get an office or a staff? When am I going to call and have somebody like a receptionist answer the phone instead of just calling you on your cell phone? And I try to say back to the client, do you really want that? You know,
Yeah.
Part of what I'm trying to deliver is when you want the guidance, the advice, the expertise, you're going right to me, and I'm the person that you agreed to work with, and I'm the only person here to answer your call and to be responsive. So on some level, it's sort of justified some of the decisions that I've made. And when the clients have decided to stay with me, it's really been a source of personal pride, but also it's been a reminder. And I always say this when people ask me for any type of advice in breaking into sports or having a business. You know, relationships are really, really important. You've got to make sure you have good relationships with people. But even beyond that, make sure those relationships are rooted in results. Make sure they're rooted in something tangible, not just, oh, I have a really good relationship with so-and-so, so he'll always work with me or he'll always want to do business with me. That only goes so far. I'd like to think that my clients now, especially the ones who've been with me for a long time, would say, you know, even in an environment where sports got shut down and sports have shifted, and there was a period of time where there wasn't as much advice for me to give them, they had an understanding that at some point this is going to get back on track, and we're still going to want Mike and need Mike to give us that advice and that guidance through how we're going to continue to benefit from this. So I've learned that maybe I've accidentally made some good choices in keeping the business the way that I structured it. And then also in having the idea to kind of stay dedicated to the client results more than anything else, I think has bought me their loyalty at this point for the right reasons. And they feel like they want to stay with me because I'm going to keep getting results for them, which is, I think, what you want to be known for.
And we're talking with Mike Berger of Berger Sports Marketing. And Mike, Green Turtle, Delta Dental, DentaQuest, which is now Dominion National, and Chesapeake Employers Insurance. Those folks have been with you a long time. You have a pretty high retention rate, don't you, with your clients?
I do. I've been really fortunate. Clients tend to come in and stay in. If they're committed to the strategy, then it's very likely they're going to stay committed to me because this is a strategy that I know how to execute. And so as long as the client feels like, you know, we're getting value out of sports, we're raising revenue, we are gaining new clients, we're achieving our goals within the sports industry, I think at this point, the retention's been good because they know that that's something that I can help them, help sort of shepherd them through. So I've been lucky with retention, and that's allowed me to focus on those clients rather than focus on chasing the new client and the next client and going out and really pounding the pavement to find new ones. Is I'm sort of making that exchange, and I'm saying to the client that I already have, you be loyal to me and I'll be loyal to you, in the sense that when you call, I'm not going to be pitching my business to someone else. I'm going to answer the phone and react to what you need. And that's worked out well so far.
I wanted to, while we're not on a set time limit, we've gone a little over a half an hour. I want to kind of wrap it up. And Gary, if you have another question in a minute, get prepared. But I wanted, Mike, your take on something right now. Do any of the sponsors say, God, the pictures of those sports with no fans, that's a turnoff for me. I don't want to be a part of that. And number two, is this in a sense, in some ways, sports with a capital S, their biggest nightmare was having something like this where people have been able to find out, while they still love sports, that they can live without it. And do you think we'll see the days where arenas are filled again and baseball stadiums and football stadiums are packed to the gills or might this be a new reality?
Well, it's a great question, something I have thought about. I haven't had the feedback to your first question from clients saying that I'm turned off by the environment. Now, from a fan to fan, people that I talk to, I'm sure you've heard it too, that it's a little static on television. But from a marketer's standpoint, they're valuing the larger share of voice they're getting. You know, when you watch the game now, balls hit into right center field. Instead of seeing a bunch of fans and colors and things like that, you're just seeing a giant logo.
Yeah.
Clients love that.
Yeah.
They feel like they're getting a real dominant approach. No logo is ever too big.
They probably wondered whether fans were ever really there, you know?
Right.
All that really was there was their sign.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to ask me, even when the fans are back, can we still cover them up with that virtual sign, or can we put the fans under a tarp with our logo on it? But boy, Stan, that second question, it's a great one. And I hope that we are not in a new reality. I really, I think over the long term, we can get past this year, maybe even next year, in an environment without fans. And I think there's enough value in the television product, following it on social media, all the other ways that we consume this. I think it can sustain for a while. But if eventually we can't get back into the arenas and be next to each other and cheer together and pack in together, then I think, that's a dangerous scenario for not just sports, but all entertainment. Movie theaters and concerts and things like that are all in the same boat. So hopefully we get to where we need to get with the vaccine and medicine and things like that, and we can pack the stadiums again. But yes, I think it's forced teams to look at, well, what if they don't come back? And it is a scary proposition. And hopefully we don't get there. But if we do, I guess my job will be to help sponsors continue to adapt to it.
Mike,
You got one more?
I just got a final. It's actually more of a personal preference question. Look, I know you're a baseball guy. You've been a baseball fan your whole life. Your son, actually, I've seen on Facebook, doing very well, a southpaw. By the way, you're not a southpaw, are you?
No,
right. He's a southpaw. So that was good thinking on your part, by the way. But he's
definitely much more valuable as a southpaw.
Absolutely. Ken, all he has to do is get one guy out. That's
right.
Well, now you got to,
Those movies make a lot of money.
But my question is, as far as baseball, whether you have nobody in the stands on TV, cardboard cutouts, or digital, I don't think any baseball fan really likes that too much because they know it's not real.
Yeah, sure.
But I want to talk about the piped-in crowd noise. Okay, this is another feature that the networks, whether they be regional or national, have brought to the broadcast. And you being a baseball guy and being around baseball for so long, all of us really, I'm wondering, do you like the piped in sound, or would you prefer just the natural sound of a baseball game? And I know they may have to bleep some stuff out, maybe a word would escape and all that, but maybe they'd be on good behavior too. But wouldn't it be neat to just hear the actual sounds of a baseball game? I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I got to tell you, first of all, I think baseball and the networks should be doing and could be doing a much better job staging their broadcasts in the way that you've seen the NBA do. I think the NBA right now is the gold standard for which sport has wrapped their arms around this situation and made the best of it and made their product look the best on TV. I think the NBA has set that tone, and baseball is probably the furthest behind in that regard. And there are different challenges because they've got you have to shoot the game in a certain way. The ball gets fouled away. You have to follow the ball into this vast emptiness of fans. So you're going to see that. But I think there are things that baseball could be doing to make it look a little bit better on TV. But I have to tell you, there are times I'm watching and a great play happens or a home run is hit and I hear that crowd noise. And for a second, I forget that there's no fans there. Okay. And I sort of like it. Now, the best of both worlds, I think, would be if we did get more natural sound, we did have more players mic'd up. To your point, you'd need a delay. I do think they should be offering us more of the natural sound, player-to-player communication, umpire-to-player communication. I think it'd be a lot of fun to hear more of the natural sounds of the games. But in those instances where a home run is hit or a big strikeout happens, it's not bothering me to hear that piped-in crowd noise because I think it sort of reminds me of how it used to be.
Yeah.
But so I guess I'd like to have my cake and eat it too, and have a little bit of that natural sound, but also supplement it with some of the piped in noise. How about you? What do you guys think of it?
I'm actually in your camp. I like the natural sound, just the mundane, like you say, when there's not a big play happening. I like the cat calls from the dugout and the chirping from the first base coach and the third base coach would be awesome. But yes, when there is a big play, I think that sound actually elevates it.
Yeah.
Last night I had a buddy of mine. I had him over for dinner. We ate outside, 10 feet apart. And then he came in and we were about 8 feet apart watching some of the game. We both thought we heard dogs barking during the sound that they were running over, which was really unusual. Mike, I agree with you that baseball has surprised me. Watching games on TV as I have for 55, 60 years, I always understood, well, the reason cameras can't be certain places is because that's where the fans are. With no fans there, I thought I'd find some more experimentation with camera angles that might bring me closer to the game. And I haven't sensed any creativity of that, either locally or so far nationally. Your thoughts?
Totally agree, Stan. I think, and in fairness, and I love baseball. You love baseball, Gary. You love baseball. But I think we all understand baseball has generally been the slowest sport to change and adapt to the times changing. They're always seemingly a half a step behind the way people consume sports today. I think the fact that they expanded playoffs was great. The DH, the universal DH, I think was the right move. The creativity of the man on second for extra innings, I think, helps. The 7-inning doubleheaders. I'm impressed.
I love those things so far. I love those things so far.
But the way that they're shooting the game, the way they're presenting the game on TV, leaves a lot to be desired. And I hope at some point, maybe when we get more national games, as we get into the postseason, hopefully you'll start to see a little bit more creativity. I know Fox is superimposing some fans into the broadcast. Maybe you see more of that. But they've got some work to do in that regard. And maybe they'll learn something watching hockey, watching the NBA, who've done a much better job with it.
All right. He is Mike Berger of Berger Sports Marketing. We really appreciate you coming on tonight, Mike.
It's been fun.
Really has been a lot of fun. For Gary Stein and myself, Stan the Fan Charles, we thank Mike Berger of Berger Sports Marketing. We want to remind you not to miss any of our great interviews and information. Be sure to like the Pressbox page and share this interview. For those of us at Pressbox, we'll see you soon the next time we're Zooming. Good night.
Take care, guys. Thanks for having me.